Welcome to If These Pages Could Talk. We have a very special treat for you, Sev. I feel like we've been building up to this one. I think so.
Mm.
I think so. We were talking with an amazing author, editor, cover artist, and you're looking at her.
Hi everyone, Savannah Storm, author, romance author. That was sort of on the spot there.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't really lead you into that very well. Uh-oh, that's okay.
No, not your fault.
And I have, of course, Kiersten Marcil, author and adventurer into history. And so why don't you we always get just the briefest intro from you, Sev. So how about you give us like the full intro? Who are you?
Word, that's on the spot. I am Savannah Storm. I am a romance author, um, specifically in paranormal, sci-fi, fantasy, and I dabble in contemporary. And then on the side, I'm an editor and a cover artist because I studied art for 7 years. So it just made sense. And at $100 to $400 a cover, it made double sense. So that's my story, basically.
Basically. Well, we're gonna get more than basically.
Yes, we
So
are. Yes, we are.
I was trying to figure out if you were episode lucky 13, and I meant to count before we started, and I'm not sure, but
I don't
you're like
know.
really close. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. I think it is 13.
Yeah. Very so that's like appropriate. We've been, like I said, we're working up to this one. So okay. So where in the world are you coming from?
I am in South Africa. This is actually my dad is Malawian, my mother is Zambian. I am Zimbabwean born, so and then we immigrated when I was 5 years old to South Africa. So I'm
Oh,
I'm as white African as you can get. Oh, and I had my DNA done. So yes, someone got a little bit busy when in my ancestry. So I have a bit of Khoisan in my DNA too. So and they say you travel from your mother to your mother because we women. So they traced that one of my mothers was Khoisan, my great great grandmothers or something. Yeah.
and those are so I am so American. So are those different areas from Africa?
Yeah, Khoisan is actually an African tribe,
Oh,
predominantly in Southern Africa, yes. Yeah.
wow.
Oh, and I've got some South America. Hello. I'm predominantly, what's it? Western Europe, but I've got
Okay.
some South America in me as well. So I'd be curious as to what your DNA would say.
Mine, it's funny you say that because my dad is looking into all of that. And so I am mostly Northern European, Welsh, Irish, French. I'm like a quarter Italian. But when we did the blood work, we found that there was someone in Asia who got busy with someone in Africa. So there's like way back somewhere
Mm.
that we don't
I
know about.
I don't think there's a single pure person on this continent. I mean, on this planet.
Planet. Hell no.
No.
Not at this point.
Mm-mm.
There's just no way.
Not with
So
Genghis
we're
Khan,
probably just
apparently.
we're all just one big happy human family.
Yes, we are.
Oh, yeah. Very cool. All right. So what time is it where you are? Because I'm Albany, New York. I probably should say that for people. So what
Uh,
time is it where you are while we're
25
filming?
minutes past 9 p.m.
Okay. And it's 25 minutes past 3 p.m. where I am. I always love that because it's fun trying to figure out, just the differences about how to connect with you. What season is it?
It is going into winter. So when we say cold, it's like today's 23, 26, and I'm chilled. So I'm
Are you
wearing my
Celsius?
jersey. Yeah, Celsius, yes.
Celsius.
And
I
it's
have no
actually
idea.
quite, oh my word, woman.
We do Fahrenheit in old New
Yeah,
England. So
yep, yep. We won't talk about that. The rest of the planet is Celsius.
I know. We're kind of funny that
Celsius.
way. All right, so then that kind of kicks me into a question I wanted to ask you. So, what is one thing about me now that we've done a few of these as an American that I don't know that maybe you don't get or you
Okay,
find
for
funny?
one thing, it's 78 degrees Fahrenheit. Um,
Mhm.
one thing about Americans is that how you think the entire world is your country. So everything, it's Miss Universe. It's um the greatest game, soccer, or I mean football tournament, the World Cup or something like that, and it's just America. Where is the Chinese? Where's the Japanese? Where's the Germans? You know, that sort of thing. It's I love it. It's just we actually have we laugh because we know where Australia is and we understand our geography. So it's just it's fascinating. And I watched those snippets where I don't even know what his name is. He's got gray hair. He's one of your talk show hosts. He interviews students, or what do you call them? Um, they're in high school.
Yeah,
Oh,
high school students.
okay, because
Yeah.
we sometimes call them scholars or
Oh,
pupils.
okay.
He interviews them and he asks them, so what is the do you know a word in English? Because they'll say, what is the main language of Britain? And they'll say English. And they'll say, do you know a word in English? And they'll go, no. And then we laugh. The rest of the yeah, we have a bit of a snigger because you just said a word in English. Yeah, it's stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's just it's entertaining, I suppose.
I always say that it's good to watch the news from other countries to
Mm,
hear what they do say about your own country, because to get that different lens and perspective is so fascinating.
it is, and you find that your news channels actually manipulate the news.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
like for example, Russia versus Ukraine. The Russians have
Yes.
no idea and what the rest of the world is doing. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
always a good idea to get different newses. And what's nice is whenever I've been in other countries, that's always on TV, some sort of news channel. So
Yeah.
it's an insight into that culture
Hmm.
and what they struggle with.
Yeah.
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 Mm.
Yeah. It's good to look beyond one's bubble.
Yeah.
Listen. Yeah. So I'm curious because you write a lot, so I wanted to know what you read as a kid.
Ooh, oh my word, I read so much. I read so much. Nancy Drew, The Famous Five, uh, growing up,
Yeah.
the Hardy Boys, and then I even read The Wind in the Willows. You know,
Yeah.
I read so
Yeah.
much, and then I was just bored one day, and like I said, raided my grandmother's shelf. And unlike everybody else we have on your library books, you name it, my parents had I don't know if you've got it in your country, probably Reader's Digest. And my mom
Yeah.
would get those little magazines and they'd have the condensed version of a novel, and I
Yeah.
would read those. So I
Yeah.
was a voracious reader. Just,
Very
just,
cool.
uh, I'm not anymore. Not since I started writing as a real author. I'm not that much of a voracious reader. I just can't get over the differences. You know, if you read something from 1970s or written in 1980s or even in 1990s, it's
Yeah.
such a stark difference to how we're expected to write. So,
Mm.
so as an editor and an author who's supposed to remember all the editing rules, I can't read these old books that I loved, that I still used. I mean, I used to reread them up until 5 years ago. So it's a struggle.
Interesting.
And I read so much for Champagne Book Group that I don't need to read for
Right.
pleasure. Yeah.
Right. Because you have so much coming in.
Mm.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Um, and if this is your first time joining us, welcome. But do check out Sev's wall. And
Oh
I love
yes,
it because
yes.
this is new and that's just
Yeah.
like a
Yeah,
small
it's
part of your
actually a bit,
personal
but let's
library.
see.
It just keeps going.
Yeah, and I still need to paint the wall, but that'll be next week Thursday.
Nice.
And I didn't get the Plump Jane series printed because I want to redo the covers. So I'm not
Oh,
happy.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Didn't make sense to
Okay.
print them and I have to reprint them. So,
How many covers have you done for yourself as opposed to another cover artist?
oh, I don't, oh, for myself. Sheesh,
Yeah.
I, st I started every book that I write, I start with a cover. So you should see the original,
Oh,
the original ones of, what's it? Let's pick one. Soul Forged, right?
yeah.
You should
Yeah.
see the original. It is so bad. So bad. I put it in my newsletter, the before, middle, and now what it is. So I've come a long way as a cover designer. So yeah, so these are the ones this one was the first one I did for Champagne Book Group. Oh, let's go this way. Yeah. So this is the first one I did for
Mhm.
Champagne Book Group because they
Gorgeous.
we couldn't figure out what the cover should be. So I said, oh well, I did one and Cassie loved it. So this is it. It didn't even go through iterations where she goes, this was it. She was like done. So yeah.
Wow.
And I can't even
That's
put
impressive.
the way I put this thing. Yeah.
That's
So
impressive. Because if you go to the members only portion of my website, you can see the first draft of my book and why it needed to go back. But so that's really good. All right. So we're gonna skip, I guess, right into your cover art then.
uh,
Well, we started there, so we might as well keep going with that. Can you walk us through a little bit of the process of when you get assigned a book cover, like how you design it?
Cassie just goes, I have a cover for you. I'm sending you the briefing. I don't know what it's called, cover information
You have like a
leaflet.
worksheet.
Yeah, that every author fills out, and she
Yeah.
usually sends me the fantasy and sci-fi. That's what she sends me to do. Um, and every now and then I get like a weird Christmas rom-com, So I don't mind those. They're not as fun. And then I reach out to the author because it must be a
Oh,
collaborative. That's what I do.
okay.
Um,
Wow.
and
Interesting.
usually I have two or three to already show and discuss. And do you like this or
Okay.
do you like this? And then we work together and we say, okay, no, this picture doesn't work, or this, I'll change the font. And yeah, and that's usually what I do. And then I always try and choose background images that are landscape so that I know when it comes to the print, I can carry on for the
Mm.
back cover. And after Cassie's happy, so once they're happy, then I send it to Cassie. They're like, yeah, please send it to Cassie. And then Cassie might come back and say, and then we tweak it and we go back and forth. And then once she says yes, then I generate the Amazon cover, the normal cover, uh, and in high res. So I actually recreate it. So everything's in low resolution until I have
Yeah.
it's signed off, and then I actually buy the pictures, and then I
Okay.
recreate them, and then I
Yeah.
send it through to Cassie. And then in the meantime, I also create posts like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and then your banners. I create all of those depending on which social media the author belongs to, and
Yeah.
some ad marketing posts. And in some cases, I even give them the font.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so you can create your own marketing.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
I didn't get that.
yeah. It depends on who's your
Hmm.
cover artist.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
the Huntress I didn't do for the Huntress.
Okay.
My first book, and I don't know, always go the wrong direction, right? I didn't do the Huntress, and
Okay.
I don't know what this font is. So, and I didn't get marketing
Mm,
material. So it was an absolute nightmare to actually
mm,
market. So when
right.
I actually did the healer for myself,
Nice.
right? Now
Yeah.
I had to go and hunt a font that was similar and recreate the whole image. So it's just so much
That's why.
easier because I can't
Yeah.
expect you we can't expect authors to know how to create graphics.
Mm-hmm.
So for me,
Mm-hmm.
it's easier just to say to an author, here we go, here's a bunch. And in some cases, I actually change. Okay, no, they don't like this. What does this symbol mean? What does that mean? I don't like this color. Then we tweak it. Jody will still email me and say, Trace, not Trace, Sev, I need some stuff. and I'll
Yeah.
help out. I mean, that's the whole
Cool.
point. And I want to do that because I want to market more on social media. So I want authors
Mm.
to reach out to me and say, I need some marketing so that I can focus on them and do like a them for a day on Champagne Book Group's
Yeah.
social media sites. But I'm currently very swamped, so I haven't gotten around to any of that.
That's why
Just
you were like earlier when we were talking off camera, you're like, don't give me any more.
yeah, no, no, I am super swamped.
Yeah, you do so much. That's cool. Um, wow. And I like that Champagne Book Group because I have to say before I signed my contract, I was really nervous, like I think every author is, about covers because you hear the stories from other authors, other publishing houses where it's like, okay, here's your cover. You don't like it? Oh, too bad. Or I've definitely heard the stories, going the other way too, of course, where, oh,
Well,
I love my cover. Good, that's good, because we don't do
the
that.
thing I tell first signing authors is to check out the covers of a
Hmm.
publishing house before you query with them,
That's a
because
great
then
idea.
because then you can see if they put quality in their covers,
Hmm.
and if they do, then go ahead and sign with them. If they don't create fantastic covers, then they're not going to invest in your story and create a fantastic cover. It's just
Hmm.
the rule of thumb.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
All right. So what in your mind makes a great cover?
Layers.
Okay.
You can't just take a picture and put
Yeah.
the font on top of it.
Hmm.
Yeah. You need layers. So
Yeah.
in other words, you take the picture, you tweak it, you add. I mean, I don't want to take another one down.
Yeah, we've already dismantled your wall.
Right. Like this one. Oh, let's put it here,
Hmm.
right? She's
Yeah.
separate. I can't even this way. She's separate. This is separate. The birds are separate. The clouds are separate. The a cabin in the snow is a separate image. And then you combine
Yeah.
it all into a work of art.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
you'll see that there's only two fonts. You're
Mm-hmm.
only supposed to do two fonts, no
Yeah.
more. Yeah. So it's
Okay.
all, so that's why it's layers. And I get very
Yeah.
upset when I create a cover for someone and it's just a single layer. I don't like it. I feel like it's incomplete. And then I'll
Hmm.
rework it and rework it until I'm happy.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Yeah. So yeah, the best cover is layers.
For Plump Jane, what do you think you might do with the covers?
I originally had a real woman on the cover, a real
Oh, really?
woman with layers. Yes. I had two
Okay.
versions. And then I did because the current trend is this cartoonish approach. So I did
Yeah.
this, the cartoonish approach, and I asked my subscribers, newsletter subscribers, and they went with, yeah, and I don't like it.
Oh,
It doesn't, it actually clashes. It clashes. As you can see, it clashes.
it's very, very
Yeah.
different from the rest.
Yeah. It's just not my thing. So I'll
Yeah.
probably change it. I'm playing and I'm just not happy. So I've done like 5 or 6 different styles and I'm not happy with anything. So I'm waiting for the muse to strike and then I will try again until I'm happy.
I also want to ask you about that series because it seems like it's a contemporary
Mm,
romance.
mm.
Okay, as opposed to your fantasy or your
Yes.
sci-fi. Yeah.
I needed something quirky and fun to write because sometimes my novels get too serious or their language is too serious and the way they speak. So I needed something fun and I had an idea, just random thought, just like some of our authors we've had on here. I
Yeah.
had this that she's a plump romance author like me
Yeah.
who writes from who writes about a plump romance author who writes about a plump romance author. And that's the premise, like breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, Jane gets up to all sorts of shenanigans because she's so quirky and full of nonsense and talks to herself the entire time. Like you know how you're as an author, you'll be in a scenario, even if you're in the dentist chair, and your brain will go off on some sort of author tangent. And that's what
Hmm.
happens to her. She in one scene, she tackles a mugger who tries to steal her handbag, and he's welcome to, she tells him, but she says to him, "You cannot take my book." We all have a notepad, and she whacks him. But in the process, she's sitting on him, so he can't wiggle away. And he's got this dirty brown hair and these bright blue eyes. And she's like, "Oh, that's quite interesting." I could write about this, and we're like that. We are absolutely 100% like that.
Oh God, yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I drive the sons nuts because we'll be somewhere and I'll throw it and I'm like, oh, that could be a story. And they're like, no, stop. You're done.
Yeah, no. Then you put it in a story ideas book. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
That's cool.
and then
Oh
in
my God.
every book, so
Yeah.
in Plump Jane, she writes about Amelia, who's a librarian. Likes she dresses like a 1950s pinup, right?
Ah,
Plump woman,
yeah.
red hair, the works. And
Yeah.
she writes erotica as a librarian, and she meets the grandson of one of the grandmothers in the retirement village who started to read smut, as he puts it, and he wants her to censor his grandmother's reading choices. So that's a big, big thing. So that is book 2, Seducing Amelia. You see, and then in Seducing
Yeah.
Amelia, she'll talk about book 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so
Mm.
cool.
It's fun to write.
I bet. Okay. So let's backtrack. So how many books do you have published right now?
21.
And how many series is that for you?
Okay, let's see. I think it's 4. I think it's 4. Yeah.
Okay.
I did a collaboration with another author, which we're going to combine. It's just novelettes, but we're going to combine them into one. So that's the Seven Cursed
Oh.
Sisters. And I did that's a contemporary. And then it's based on the Seven Dwarfs. So each sister has got like Dumpy, not Dumpy, Dopey. Yeah, that she's got. She falls asleep at the drop of a hat, and then when she wakes up, some guy's kissing her like she's Sleeping Beauty, and then she punches him, and she lands up in jail again. Like the police are so tired of this, the sheriff. Yeah, so they each have something from Seven Dwarfs, so that's where we based that series on. And then I have the Blood of Legends, which is the paranormal. That's a 4-book series. I've only written 2. The third one's, I haven't even started on the third one. Not a priority at this point. And then I've got the Plump Jane series, the Plump Playwrights. Um, I've got 7 or maybe 12 planned for that. I've only written 5 so far. So 6 6 and 7 I want to do this year. And then I have my biggest seller is the gifting series, and that's my sci-fi, my soul forged. This is the one that actually started me on the writing journey, where my husband read my really pathetic writing style and encouraged me to invest time wise with an editor, everything. So Soul Forged actually only got published a second. This one got, or third. This one got published third at Champagne Book Group after The Huntress and Zayax and Fox. Then this one got published. So this one is like 17 or 18 books that I plan to write, and I've only done 9. So yeah, this is the gifting series, sci-fi romance. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's quite a lot.
And you have a great story too, now that I think of it, of how you got picked up by Champagne Book Group. Do you want to retell that story? Most people
Um,
haven't heard.
yeah, sure. I mean, we've all done the pitch events and failed query. So what happened was they were having a Facebook party, and you could just pitch. And I pitched both books. I pitched The Huntress, and I pitched Zayax and Fox. And then in the pitch event, Cassie said, "I want both. Send it through." And I sent the first 3 chapters and queries through. And then she emailed me and she says she wants it. And I said, "Well, which one?" And she said, "Both." So I signed both at the same time.
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. And the scary thing is, Ix and Fox is a clean romance. It's my one and only, ever only clean romance. I thought I'd try my hand at it, you know. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. No. So no,
Bring on the smut.
no, it came out okay. And what I'm realizing is because I used to think I'm a smut writer or an erotic writer, and I'm not. Um,
Yeah.
I write adventure and action with romance.
Mm.
It's a parallel story, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So when Sid Fleming was talking about meeting the characters in chapter one, I was like, no, it doesn't happen like that. It might happen in my contemporary because they are novellas, so they're only 45,000. But in my other books, no. You might not get
Okay.
to meet the love interest until much later.
Really?
Yeah, and I didn't want to because I
Okay.
mean, my editors were like, you got to follow the protocol. You got to meet in the first three chapters, and then this has got to happen, and this is got to. And then I said, why don't you just get an AI to write it? Why not? Why? Why must I tell the
Mhm.
same story following the same path over and over? And it gets boring. So no, I
Ooh.
didn't. Each one is different.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't want to be bored. Then the novel won't get written. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you're not writing the not to diss them, but the Hallmark romance that we like to
Yeah.
talk about a lot.
I
That
mean,
form.
I love them. I read them,
Oh
but I
yeah.
just can't write them.
That's so
I
funny.
mean, imagine if you landed a job at Harlequin or I can't even remember the other place. Imagine if you landed a job there and all you did was churn out the same story along the same plot points,
Mm-hmm.
just different
Mm-hmm.
characters. That's a hallmark right there.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
couldn't do it. I think it feels soulless to me.
Mm-hmm.
And also,
Yeah, we
I've
were
been reading since I was how young? 36 years I've been reading romance. So you get to a point where
right.
you're like, oh, you know where the story is going, and then I don't finish the book.
Right, because you want something else.
So what were you
Yeah.
going to say?
I was gonna say we were talking about Bridgerton in a previous episode, and after we had filmed that episode, I was thinking more about it, and I'm like, but you know what? It actually, as much as it's a Regency romance, and that's huge right now, it's actually very different because that book goes beyond the marriage and the happy ever other, and it's actually like that a lot in her series, which is nice. That it doesn't end with the marriage; the problems keep going, which is
Yes.
so true to life too. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, the happy ever after comes somewhere in the marriage once
Yeah.
they sort through the difficulties.
If they meet too early or if they have the scene, let me just bulge my eyes, the scene too early, I'm bored. Okay, you've
Mm.
right, you've
Mhm.
they've met, they've done it. Now what?
Be going right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So in some instances, I have tackled that issue, my issue, and
Mhm.
they have met, they have done it, but something happens, and they have to either they're in danger or they're on the hunt or something happens. So yeah, that's uh that's how I've tackled that. So we can get back to the happily ever after later. They can't focus on
Yeah.
it now. You know, like in movies where they're just about to take on the big bad wolf or go on this massive mission and they suddenly kiss and you're like, there's no
But
time. Yeah, there, yeah,
yes. Oh, I hate that.
yeah,
Totally.
yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Um, do you have a favorite book, baby?
When I saw this question, I was like, oh my word. I would say, oh my word. It's always the one I'm currently working on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But if I had to say, it would be Ire of Silver. That one over there in the
Oh,
corner. That
yeah,
one.
yeah.
Can't even point. I'm like spastic.
You got
Uh,
it.
yeah, Ire of Silver uh, is one of my favorites. One of my favorites. Because it's a fantasy, and I mean, I've played Witcher, the game, read the books. I've played Dragon Age. I've played lots of fantasy games, read lots of fantasy. So when I started on this journey, it was all about this slave girl, not really a slave. Her father didn't want her, blamed her, for his lot in life or whatever, beat her, you name it. So she escapes, but in doing so, she steals from someone that she shouldn't have. He's a lawbringer, and he
Mm.
needs what she took, because without it he'll die, and no one knows that. So he's on
Mm-hmm.
this mission to find her, and when he does, um, he realizes there's more to this than he initially thought, and he
Mm-hmm.
convinces her to travel with him north because she thinks she's without magic. And so she wants to go to the dwarven city up north, because they don't like magic and they will welcome her because she's magicless. But she isn't, right?
Mm.
There's this
Yeah.
whole scene where it's been suppressed and why it was suppressed, and how they get that unraveled and the danger of that. And then in the meantime, there's this wickedness happening across the land where babies are being stolen, and how he, as the lawbringer, has got to find out why. And there's
Yeah.
it's a whole mission. And there's eventually she gets involved in the war and discovers she has magic and how she helps, and yeah, and they get together in the end. But there's no, that scene early on in the book.
Yeah.
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 And I can't do that in my sci-fis, because they have, well, I have to do it again. They have a special bond that happens, something. It's been a mutation in their DNA. So when they see
Mhm.
their soulmate, it triggers a response. And then the book's over. They're not together because she's now stuck. If she doesn't stay with him, he dies. Right?
Oh.
Yeah.
Mm.
Right. So the book's over. So now I've got to add so much before the scene where they
Yes.
meet, where they meet,
Yeah.
because he needs to see her full frontal, full on, not nude, just full on, not dirty, plain hair, clothes, fine. He has to see her like that to trigger the bond.
Got
And
it.
if so, it's kind of me avoiding them seeing each other for most of the books. It's hard.
Yeah.
I have to tell
I
you, it's
bet.
hard. And they do meet early on, but she's in full like a hazmat suit. So he only sees her face or her head. So it doesn't
Yeah.
trigger it, but he still thinks about her, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering that if it's that sort of, I don't know, love at first sight bonding, like how do the characters relate to each other and learn each other?
Yeah. It's pretty hard because now it's actually forced proximity. If you think about it, they're forced to be with each other because of this
Mhm.
this this bond, and how they have to learn, and he has to learn because she's a new species. He's never met a human before, right? So he
Uh,
has to learn their idiosyncrasies. And in this book, she's a bit of a know-it-all. So she already knows about his species, right? And tells him things. And he's like, hang on a moment. How do you know that? So it's the whole thing. And she's also kick ass. So she kicks butt. Yeah. So
yeah. Cool.
my husband's
Wow.
screaming Mary Sue. She's not a Mary Sue. But just 2 cents outside the study. Go on.
I'm waving hi to your husband. I know he
Yeah,
can't see it.
yeah, he walked by.
Yeah. That's wow. Okay, that's cool. When I was going through your website, I couldn't figure out what, like, if I had really like gone on Amazon, I could have figured out, but which was the one that just came out most recently? Was it Ire of Silver?
No, it was the healer.
The healer. The healer. Okay. You put it out like Nora Roberts. So like it's hard to keep track of you, Seth.
Sorry.
Yep.
I just wrote them all.
That's you're an envy. That's a good thing.
I know I slowed down. I don't write as much as I used to because now I
Really?
I edit a lot. That's why I'm focusing on getting my books I've written out.
Okay.
Then I'm free to write.
Yeah.
I don't have this thing hovering over me saying, you need to edit me and publish me. I know
How,
it's
all right. So how many books are you in the middle of writing right now?
one. I don't write more than
You-
one at a time.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I tend to put their names in the wrong place. And they're like, and then your beta readers are like, who's this person?
What was that?
Oops.
Yeah, that amazes me, people who do write. And I say that I do have a book outside of the Enlightened series that I've started that I'm several chapters in, but overall, I'm amazed by people who do that, who are in the middle of several
But
different books.
but yours are vastly different, right?
They are.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Because
that's easier to
it
write.
is easier, right? Because that's a historical
Mm,
fantasy with a love story. It really isn't romance. It's got a strong love story, but
mm.
that's historical fantasy as opposed to the paranormal humor, which is contemporary setting that I think once I get book 2 turned in, I'm gonna quick finish that up
Mm.
and get that taken care of and then go back to do book 3.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
sometimes you need that. I mean, in the
Hmm.
gifting series, because they don't speak English or Galactic, um, they rely on a translator that's embedded in their wrist. So it converts the language for them. And
Hmm.
it's pure dictionary. So as if you're speaking Merriam-Webster. So there's no contractions, right? So that they
Yeah.
speak very formal
Yeah.
and also in passive voice, you know? So it's very hard. So by the time I had written my 5th book, I was up to here. I was like, I've had enough. So I did the Huntress, where she is full of sass and there's adverbs and which I had to take out. But I was like, I am going for these adverbs like crazy. So this woman had, so when I wrote her, I wrote with so much non-dictionary language because I needed a break. I
Yeah.
really needed a break.
Yeah.
It's just how it
Um,
is. So you can write 2 separate books if it's completely different.
yeah, I think you can. I don't know though. I don't know. Like at least for me, and maybe because I'm just so new still, because I need to be in the headspace to write it. It's just such a different headspace. Because
Yeah.
this is of course the Revolutionary War. So I'm listening to the soundtrack of Turn Washington Spies to get me in the mood. Whereas the other series, because there is a ghost from the Regency period, I put on a couple Bridgerton scenes to get me in the mood for that one. Very different headspace.
Yeah.
So
You have to
also
it's
why
like
I
a
need to get that up and written.
you have to flick
Yeah,
a
go ahead.
switch. It's
Yes.
that's how it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Um, do you have, because I wanted to talk about this with Plump Jane. Um, do you have thoughts on the romance trope where the main character female gets dumped and then she goes and gets herself in shape and makes herself sexy and pretty and then the love happens?
Never.
Never in what you write?
No.
Or you just, yeah,
No.
yeah.
You know, I've got one where she lost weight.
Hmm.
So now she lives off 1 meal a day. She doesn't yeah, it's called OMAD. It's a thing. Um and she's scarred. She gave birth, so she has 2 kids, you know, and
Mm.
so it's sort of like she's in her 40s going through a divorce, that sort of thing, and then she meets somebody. So I do have that, but I don't have anything where they lose weight. I mean, in Plump Jane, she does lose like 10 pounds or something, or 7 pounds,
Mhm.
but
Yeah,
it doesn't matter anymore. Not to him, not to her, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
So and
Okay.
his focus was to get her healthy, and he learned something. He learned that it's not all about being skinny. It's about being healthy because he fell for a plump woman
Hmm.
as a fitness guru, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah, so yeah, it was all about that. And the others, they don't care. They don't. The guys, but in truth, men don't care. How?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
they
I
don't.
definitely had that said where having a little extra weight because when I was a professional actor, I was the skinny mini, and I'm more comfortable to hug now, I'm told. So
Yep.
snuggling is easier when you got a
Not
little
so
something.
bony. Yes.
Yeah. Um, we never did our warm up, so I want to
Oh,
go back and yeah, now that we're like practically at the end of this episode. Um, but you're in the middle of some really cool figures that you're making. So
let's see if I get a nice shot in. Let's see. I don't think so. Come on, camera.
yeah, wants
Yeah,
to
you can't
focus on
turn. Yeah.
you,
Oh, yeah,
maybe
it's
in front of
focused
your
on me.
face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, no, not at all. Okay.
All right. All
Yeah, this is
right.
my latest minifig, and it's actually Tagari from Ire of Silver. So she's got let's see, I put it over here. She's got a mismatch of all her armor because she doesn't have armor. She's an
Yeah.
escaped slave. So she's got the only things that's brand new are her leggings. So those are beige, but the boots are stolen, the cloak is borrowed, and she's even the crossbow is not hers. So yeah,
That's cool.
this is husband and I painted. I don't think I could do it without him,
Oh,
honestly, because he's like, nope, we're not done. You still need to add the highlights, and I'm like, oh man. And then you'll take it outside and spray it so it's sealed.
yeah.
Yeah, it's our date
Is
night
it
thing.
that's fun.
Mm.
I like that. Is it all sprayed or do you do hand painting as well on them?
It's actually all well. You start off with black and white. What do you call it? Zenithal is what it's called. It's black and white.
Okay.
Yeah, and zenith. He says it's based on the word zenith, so that you can see where the shadows are. So you spray it
Okay.
black and then you spray it white. Or was it the other way
Yeah.
around? Yeah, black and white, and then you paint them by hand.
Okay.
Yeah, so the hair
Cool.
and the eyes and he does the eyes. There's no way I can do the eyes. Yeah, and then you wash it. There's different washes. So if it's brown, you use a different wash, and if it's purple, use a different wash, etc. And then
Yeah.
you add highlights. And
Cool.
then he takes it outside and he clear sprays it so that it seals it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we started with the bases, and this one's on a rocky platform. This is where
Okay.
she learns that she can protect herself. So I thought this, I mean, they're just minifigs. They're Dungeons and Dragons minifigs that are just applicable to me.
Yeah.
I can turn
That's
them
so
into any
cool.
character.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what
Fun.
I've got one more to go, and then I'm done. Because we don't paint in winter. It's too cold. They don't dry as fast.
Okay.
And we're freezing. So yeah.
Cool. See, mine are all store bought. They're not as cool as yours, but I did grab another one. I was because I showed Washington in a previous one, and I was trying to figure out who to show this time. And
Yeah.
so we're doing Lafayette today.
He's also nicely based. You see his base with the
Yes, he does have a nice look at that, the grass
yeah,
and the dirt.
yeah.
Yeah. These are fabulous though. They're
Mm.
so expensive. I don't even think they make them anymore. These are W. Britton's, but
Yeah,
uh
they're nice and they're nicely painted too.
they are. And my husband's great because when he buys them for me, that's the thing he looks for is like you said, the eyes or the hands,
Mm.
to make sure that they are nicely painted. My hand
Oh my word. Lost signal again.
we got like 10 minutes left. So you had talked about maybe redoing the covers for Plump Jane. Have you ever, with all of your books that you've published, had one that you wish you could go back and rewrite? Like maybe pull it off the market, rewrite it, revise it, put it back?
Always. Always.
Okay.
I would like to probably redo Soulforged and probably go through Plump Jane series again just to make sure because I'm paranoid about spelling mistakes, edits. Because you know the one where you go bear versus bear versus bear,
Mm.
your spell checker doesn't think that's an error, and you're like,
Mhm.
yeah, it is still an error, you know. So I'm paranoid about that. I
Yeah.
even sometimes think maybe I should take Zayaks and Fox and turn it into a steamy romance, But no, I can't. If I go back, oh my word, can you mean I'll never get done. I'll never
Right.
finish. Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say have you discovered in writing is your, I call them sin words, those words that you just use too much?
Just going to give you we call it a scare look, so it's skew. There are so many. I have a list. I call them idiosyncrasies. That's what I say.
Uh-huh.
So every author I edit, they must create their own idiosyncrasy list. And it's like words like trail or groan. Um, what am I? I'm trying to think of Shikari because I highlighted them. I'm paranoid, so I go through them and highlight them. Sigh. I take out all sighs, all nods. Take them out.
Mm.
Just take them
Hmm.
out. So if he says he sighed and sipped his coffee, I just take out the side straight away.
Yeah.
He just sipped his coffee. Yeah.
Do you let yourself put in any of them at this point? Or you
Yeah,
just
I do.
that try
I
to pick
do.
one?
Sometimes it's applicable.
Okay.
So, so,
Okay.
but I check them. That's all you need to do. I mean, in the Huntress, we had so many uses of trail. So thankfully, Cassie let me do a re-edit because it was a
Mhm.
spelling mistake on the first page. On the
Oh,
first page. Yeah. So Cassie let me do a re-edit and we took out all the trails. I had trails everywhere.
okay.
And my rule of thumb is one per page. So if you're gonna have a word echo, which is more than one word because your brain is lazy, it'll follow the same synopsis trail.
Mhm.
There, see, I use trail. Then one per page is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also as. Oh my word, I'm trying to get rid of most of my as if,
Yeah.
you know, as. It's hard.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I have found, and you don't even know you're doing them. Like, my editor had a great list, but I had a couple words and Cassie flagged me for the word followed.
Mm-hmm.
Everything followed in
Yeah.
my first book. Or the one that I found myself is
Mm.
only this, only that, only
Well,
if.
what other choice do you have? Just. And just is worse.
It
You know.
is, right,
Mm.
because it really sort of like takes the bite out of what you're trying to say.
Yeah, and the also the tricky one is when you use he cupped his own what? He held his own cup, and that's a tautology. But in some instances you can't not use own, you
Hmm.
know. When you're speaking about someone
Hmm.
else and he's a male and you're a male and you're talking about your own chest, you can't say your chest. It just because it's not you're not using the word you're using his. So because it's
Hmm.
third person. So you can't say his
Yeah.
chest because it could be talking to them about the other guy's chest. So you have to
Yeah.
say his
Yeah.
own chest. So that's where you get away with a bit of tautology. But for the most part,
Yeah.
yeah. And very. I don't like the word very. Got to get rid of the word very.
All right, that leads us really well into editor because I did promise we are going to talk a little bit about you as an editor. Um, what? Oh, I shouldn't start with this question, but I'm going to.
Go ahead.
What is your biggest pet peeve in working with authors
You
when
made
you have
me.
your edit? What was that?
You made me choose the other day. It's
I
starting with dialogue, um, or it's with a dream sequence, or it's using
uh
the word very or sudden. Suddenly it happened. If I see a suddenly and I am reviewing your manuscript for submission at Champagne Book Group, it's a red flag for me. And I
mm,
literally go and check. Well, literally, that's also a pet peeve. I go and check to see how many suddenlies are in this manuscript and how many varies, because that will determine how much editing. So if I were to recommend your book for Champagne Book Group, how much editing is this going to take to get it to Champagne standard?
mhm,
So
mhm.
those are the things I check. And obviously
Okay.
I need to hold myself to that standard. I can't expect you to take out all your suddenlies, and here I am throwing suddenlies left, right, and center. So it's a cycle. So when I'm editing my books, I also check for and then it happened, and then this, and then that, or starting with then. So it's just things that I pick up as I read. Just now it's second nature, if that's insane. Yes, I have a lot of pet peeves. No, the most is when you haven't lived it, yet you daring to write about it. So if you like if you're taking a long trip and you haven't done your research. So I mean, I don't mind if you're going to be a doctor. I mean, I wrote
Yeah,
about the doctor. Just do your
yeah.
research. Then I don't even notice. But if you don't do
Mhm.
your research and it's weak, then it's almost a don't finish, do not read for me. So it's a lot of
Yeah.
things. Sorry. So
No,
what?
I think because we do have writers who it's good to get that perspective. So,
Yeah, and don't be lazy. It
mhm,
it's a commitment. Becoming an author is a commitment. And in other words, improving your craft. If you're relying on an editor to fix your novel, um, you're not going to last long because we
mhm,
don't have time to rewrite your novel for you because it's not our novel.
yeah.
We've got enough on our plates. We don't want to now rewrite your novel. So what I like to do is, Jody and I do the same. Jody Christensen, another ex-Champagne editor. We edit 3 chapters. I know we edit 3 chapters at a time. And what I expect is anything you learn in those first 3 chapters, you roll
Yeah.
out for me and the rest of the manuscript before I get to it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if I say to you, and we do it right in the beginning, you overuse the word just, for example, or only, go ahead and look up all your onlys and change them because then I'm editing your changes.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
what if you wait, then I'm editing the original, making you change it to only, then editing your only. So if you go ahead, we can get the novel done faster and into publishers' hands, Champagne Book
Yeah.
Group's hands. So the release
Yeah.
date can happen faster. So it's all about
Mm-hmm.
streamlining this process. So that's how
Yeah.
I like to work. Go ahead, learn.
Let me ask
Yeah.
you a question then. So, because Champagne Book Group has this where when you have an editor, they're your editor for life, you
Mm,
submit not through the main, to be considered, but you submit directly to your editor for future consideration. So I found myself with my second book, I have like a list of questions for Jody that I had started building my editor to say, does this work? Does this not work? How much do you think you can you lean on your editor with subsequent books to help you flesh out those ideas?
it actually depends on your relationship. So if I was you, I would email Jody anyway
Yeah.
because you have a
Okay.
relationship with her and you can ask her for advice. But I would also ask because in order for your new editor to be your proper editor, they should have read your first book. Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you can still ask them those questions.
Okay.
That's exactly
Okay.
how I mean, you're building a friendship, a relationship, partnership. You should be able to ask them anything.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Just
Um,
making notes.
always making notes. I Putting these videos out takes me hours.
I know, and I really wish I could help you. You must just tell me.
Oh no, that's okay. Well, it's just because I want, when people watch these to be able to have the chapter breaks and really know what it is we're talking about. And still make it interesting, like teasers. I'm not going to give
Mm,
away the whole shop here, of course, but just I want people to be able to enjoy these videos and go back, especially to hit the parts that they really need to hear again so they can take notes.
mm.
So yeah, yeah. So definitely taking notes. Um, so maybe let's just go back to this one question, which is almost taking us backwards. But
It's fine.
how when you do look at books and you're considering whether or not you want to take it on as an editor, what sort of things are you looking for, and what tends to grab you?
Uh, I like to be surprised because, like I said, I've read for 36 years. I can see where it's going. So if you've surprised me. And well, A, I'm surprised I didn't see that happen. I'm already interested. B, I don't notice that I'm reading.
Mm,
So
mhm.
if a book, next thing I've finished 3 chapters, and I'm like, oh, how did that happen? You know,
Yeah.
I don't notice the grammar. I don't notice any spelling mistakes. I don't notice punctuation. I'm just reading because I'm that invested. That's probably what most of us acquiring editors actually look for, is that gets sucked into a world. And the other thing is, if I squeal like I'm 16 years old, um, reading my first historical romance, probably a Joanna Lindsay, then I am, hello, sign now. I don't even need to finish the book because
Mm,
I've squealed. I think I said
yeah.
that to Cassie. I squealed, sign, sign. And she was like, okay. But they didn't accept. I mean, I would have loved to have any of her books I would have read and edited to my heart's content. So for the most part, but we've recently started something where we have a group that checks. So if I say this, I want to ask Cassie to contract, I then
Mhm.
send to this group and we all check it and we all agree and then we send for contract. So it's another step in our process that we've just recently added.
That's interesting. So then does the group all read the manuscript? Like the whole manuscript?
Well, no, if it's mine, so if I
Yeah.
like to pitch and I get a query, I
Okay.
read I read well, I read the first 3 chapters and then I ask for a full and I read the full, and
Okay.
then I send it to the group and they just read the beginning, bits, the middle, and the end, so they can see
Oh,
the process. And is the writing good? Is it solid? That sort of thing. I know the story, and I'm saying
okay.
it's a good story. They will look
Yeah.
at the grammar and the punctuation and the voice and all of that, and then decide if
Okay.
it's worth it. Yeah.
Oh,
But for
wow.
you, it goes straight to your editor. It
Right.
doesn't. It doesn't go through this process. This is for newbies. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Taking them on.
Okay.
So,
Which will be interesting for me because now I'm sort of at the start again, but not really because my editor is no longer with CBG.
yeah.
So we have to figure out who's gonna pick
No, it just
pick me
means
up
you're
to
making a
help.
new friend, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
New friends, new ways to learn. Um, we're going along. Oh well. Actually, can you go back for a second and just maybe explain for the writers who are listening why the word suddenly is a red flag for you? What is it about the word suddenly that just doesn't work?
You're supposed to show, not tell.
Mm-hmm.
So right then, just saying suddenly is telling me that suddenly something's happening instead of showing me that something just happened, right?
Yeah.
If you're in the middle of a scene and you're casually talking on the walking on the beach and suddenly somebody jumps out, right? You're not
Mhm.
showing me. So instead of that, you should say a man jumped out. And that already says suddenly, because we all know we're casually walking on the beach, we're in the mood, we're in the zone, we're feeling the vibe, and then this man jumps in front of you. It is suddenly. You don't need to go and say suddenly. You can use the
Right.
word sudden because it was a sudden attack, that you can use,
Mhm.
but the word suddenly, no. So
That's a great example too, because it is the language of it is just jarring enough to give you that feeling of suddenly it happened.
yeah, so
Great example.
thank
Cool.
you.
That's how you get paid the big bucks for that.
Yeah, yeah, I'm quitting my day
Air
job.
quotes.
Yeah, I'm just
Awesome.
laughing at you. I'm always laughing.
All right. We are out of time, Seb. So, oh
Yeah,
my
it's
gosh,
cool.
so glad that we did this, and we're gonna have to do a part two at some point because there's so much more we can talk about and we haven't yet, but we will.
I
It's
felt
okay.
you covered everything.
Well, you put
Yeah.
out so much work. We'll find something. So for
Okay.
we'll save it for a rainy day.
All right.
Okay. So to our audience, please like this video. If you have any questions for Sev, because she wears so many hats, and I'm sure there's questions out there that we didn't ask, please put them in the comments below and we will get you answers. Please follow, subscribe wherever you're watching us, and have a great day. Thank you,
Bye,
Steph.
everyone.
Bye.